streaming. It was not. So let me share this to myself so I can reply to anyone. Sharing to myself. And alrighty. Here we go. Now here's the irony of doing this on my phone. Okay, good. Is that it actually makes things much easier. I have a whole streaming setup, OBS, laptop, all this crazy tech. However, it adds a lot of complication that I simply don't want. So instead, I'm just using my phone for the live stream. I've got enough subscribers for that now. Thank you all my subscribers. It makes things much easier. But right now I'm going to work on the next chapter of High Tide at Hana, part of the Maui Desire Series. It's a romance series I've been writing. Let me lower my phone just a tiny bit. How's that? It makes my head look distorted. And I like doing it this way rather than the super polished environment and all this stuff, because it simply comes down to, I want this to be real, to show you how the working author actually works. I've got the poster for my book Iron Catacomb and my SERA archive series. Check out aaronrlinsdau.com. But today I'm working on my books under my pen name Aaron Belsing. So here's the thing. This chapter, chapter 27, is where Brooke and Ethan basically break up, because Brooke wants some sort of commitment from the guy, even though they've only been seeing each other for like 5 or 6 days. She lives on the mainland. They're in Hawaii. This is a classic travel romance trope. A will she or will he, won't she sort of thing. And also, it's a mature romance, so there's not so much chaos, but more of an emotional feel. But also, I add a lot of environment to my writing. That way you can actually feel what the place is like. I really try and go to the places that I'm writing about, and I also write about the places that I've been to. Not universally, it's just kind of how it is, but I have been to Rottenburg, Germany, and I will write a story about that as well in romance. But let's get started. This is where the conflict happens, and the big break, darkest night happens in my book. And awesome thing yesterday, I was walking dictating, and I love technology. I mean, this whole setup makes it so easy to do. However, let's see. My phone was recording in the voice app, and then all of a sudden it just stopped recording. So there I am, blah, blah, blah. And I was literally dictating my book to the birds. That was cool. So I've gotten really good about this, but sometimes tech just... So I'm going to have to walk with my phone in my hand like this, staring around. Where's my other phone? Yeah, literally walking my hand, just glancing up, making sure the recorder's still working. Oh, spare phone, by the way. Yeah, very entertaining. So let's get on with this dictation and finish the breakup scene. Crystal light. I would normally have tea, but then I would have to hit the facilities. It's just a thing. So activate the voice memos app. And I love recording in there because then I send it to the transcription software, and then the voice memos app appears on my laptop, my phone, my iPad. It's freaking awesome. I love it. Okay. We're now recording chapter 27C, part of chapter 27. As dinner came to a close, Ethan and Brooke continued to fill the space with small talk. The conversation had become somewhat awkward because Brooke knew that even though her impromptu interview would lead to a bigger interview because the firm just absolutely wanted her, she wanted some sort of commitment or at least fight from Ethan. But he had been through such a horrible divorce that he was interested in her, and she could tell that, but she just wanted a little bit of fight, and she wasn't sure if she was going to get what she wanted. But Brooke was smart knowing that they'd only been dating officially for a week, and this was a vacation fling, so she was mindful of that. Ethan smiled and said, that dessert was excellent. I'm so glad you were able to make it. I'm sorry that it took me a lot longer at work than I had hoped, but that's unfortunately kind of the business. Brooke nodded and smiled. and took a sip of her, what was she going to drink after dinner? She took a sip of her coffee for her after dinner drink and said, Ethan, I really like you. I mean, I enjoy your company and I think we have something going here. I'm just a bit concerned, the long-term vision. I mean, we live in two different places and I'm going to be coming to the end of my stay in Maui here. What do you think we should do? Ethan put his fingers on the table and then intertwined them and looked down at them for a moment, then looked into her eyes and smiled and said, Brooke, I absolutely like you too. I mean, there's a long road to go to discover if we're compatible, and we have some potential future here. At least not necessarily in Maui here, but just overall. Brooke raised her eyebrows, and Ethan said, sorry, I'm stumbling over my words. That sounded much better in my head when I was thinking of it before I said it. Brooke smiled and appreciated, and she said, I appreciate your humanity. I've run into a lot of men who have this big old bluster, but when it all comes down to it, they're just as flawed as me. And Ethan said, oh, flaws? Absolutely. I am loaded with them. But you have an entire career and you really have to think about what you're doing. I mean, your daughter's old enough to be on her own, which is incredible. And I want you to be successful. I don't want to get in the way. Brooke thought for a moment and pursed her lips. And she thought, that's not the answer I wanted. I just wanted a little bit of something. This guy's incredible, but... And Ethan continued, and I would certainly like to keep seeing you again. I mean, I would absolutely love it if you stayed in Hawaii forever, but I know the money runs out eventually. Brooke shook her head and said, yeah, the money definitely runs out here. I mean, milk is like $7 a gallon. It's pretty mind-boggling. And Ethan agreed that Hawaii, it's a paradise, but not a paradise for the bank account. Brooke thought for a long time, and she said, I'm really enjoying this. I think we should continue. Just, I got a lot of things to think about. And Ethan agreed. He said he had a lot of things to think about, and he apologized that work got in the way, and she told him, oh, don't apologize at all. I mean, this is simply how it is. We're adults in our 40s, and we're not just in college running around. We have real consequences to consider. Just then, the server arrived, and Ethan took care of the bill, and Brooke asked if he wanted to split it, and he said, oh no, this is my treat. I invited you out. And she said, are you sure? I would love just to pay for half of it. And he said, you know what? Why don't we meet up for lunch tomorrow? I think I'll be able to get off. I don't know where you're going. Just let me know, and then you can pick up the tab on that one. We're not going to quite do Dutch, but I just enjoy giving to a person I really enjoy, or I really like. And Brooke said, fair enough, that works. He pulled out his American Express Platinum, and the server took care of the bill. She did clock that he pulled out a nice expensive card, so she glanced at it and saw it was a business platinum. So she knew that he was sharp. He used his points and miles, most likely, because that card wasn't cheap. And she just casually mentioned it. Oh, you've got that card as well? And he said, absolutely. This thing gets me perks and gets me into the lounges flying. I wouldn't be without it. Brooke thought for a moment. Oh, that's a good way to go. I'm impressed. And Ethan said, thanks. I've actually never had anyone appreciate the credit card for the capability, just the spending power. And Brooke replied, Brooke took another sip of her coffee, finishing it off. And she said, yeah, I have to admit, there's probably a few gold diggers in the world. And Ethan shook his head. You have no idea. It'd be interesting to trade roles if you could do one of those body switch, like whatever that movie was called. And she thought, Oh, yeah, what was that movie called? That was, Parent Trap. She said, absolutely. They both laughed. Weren't there multiple versions made, like with Lindsay Lohan? And he said, yes, that one was pretty entertaining, but just the whole idea of being able to switch and see what it's really like. Brooke thought for a moment. Yeah, that might work one time. The Ethan finished paying off the bill, and they set down their napkins, and then they walked outside into the late afternoon sun. The sun is lowering over the horizon. Golden light shafts streaked all over. The water sparkled just in the distance, and they both walked side by side, but not hand in hand. Brooke didn't cross her arms, but she wanted to see what would happen. After a moment, Ethan reached out and took her hand as they walked, and that brought her some comfort knowing that the man that she'd spent time with and had a physical relationship with still showed signs of affection. When they got to her SUV, she said, "You know what? I know you have to work early tomorrow. Why don't I just stay at my condo? I mean, I'm literally paying for the thing and I barely used it." Ethan raised his eyebrows and said, "Oh, that's up to you. I mean, I'd certainly love to have you in, but I have to get up really early and I don't want to disturb your rest." So, absolutely. He leaned over and gave her a peck on the lips, and then they hugged and held each other. And then they stood there for a little bit longer, embracing, as though it was the last time they're going to see each other. And they both had that feeling. And Brooke thought, wow, this is really different. Once they released each other, he smiled, held her shoulder for a moment, and then walked back over to his gray Land Cruiser with a few rust spots. And she looked and thought, does that thing have another rust spot? That must be the Hawaii way. As he got into his Land Cruiser, he looked back and waved at her, pulled out and drove away. And Brooke stood there as she thought about it and then hopped into her little SUV. And then she thought, I'm driving home alone. Why am I doing this? I want that job, I really do, but I do not want this corporate career. I really have some things to think about. She put the key in the ignition and turned it on, checked the visor and the mirrors, and then looked at herself in the mirror and thought, Brooke, you're still a good-looking woman, but the clock is more than ticking, honey. Think about this long and hard. Just then, a family walked behind her, and she put the shifter back in park, or she dropped the gear shifter into neutral and then waited for the family to pass. They looked like they're having a lot of fun and chitter-chattering after they'd walked out of the restaurant. It made Brooke smile and think, and she thought to herself, there still is hope. Boom! Now, the whole emotional movement of that chapter was the breakup. It was quiet. It wasn't some spectacular blow up or one of those misunderstanding, I heard you, you chatted with a woman, sort of crazy, silly chaos. I'm going to write those. But for this particular book, I wanted more emotionally mature adults to give the experience of, hey, what would this really be like when you're in your late 30s and through your early 50s? You do not want chaos. And if you have chaos, it's just pretty wild. I certainly enjoy reading those books, but for this particular one, I wanted a more thoughtful, emotional experience. And hopefully, I'm bringing that to my readers. So let me finish this up. And why did I call that, let's see, High Tide Chapter 27C, is because I had to break Chapter 27 into 3 parts. As I was going along, I realized that there were 3 distinct emotional beats. Other authors, I don't have her book, Jude Deverill, Nora Roberts, they usually have much longer chapters with multiple emotional beats in them, and I prefer to slice things up more in the James Patterson model. That way, when you flip through my book in either physical paperback or the ebook and you look and you see only a couple pages, you think, ooh, I can just read this right before going to bed. And before you know it, it's 2 a.m. and you have to get up at 6 to go to work. That's how I like to write. I think I'm going to finish here with a live stream so I can get my editing done. That's not as exciting to watch, absolutely. But check out my link below to my romance website, aaronbelsing.com, where you'll see High Tide at Hana available for pre-order soon. And also check out my website, aaronrlinsdau.com, where I write my thrillers, the Grant Colson thriller and the SERA Archives thrillers. Thank you very much for watching. Check out links below. Please leave a comment and give me some ideas for what you might like to see in the future and for character ideas of, ooh, this could happen, that could happen. I don't promise to implement it, but I'm always looking for great ideas. Thank you very much.